everybody, and welcome to
the Macabre Podcast Universe.
It's the podcast that exists to prove people wrong when they say
sequels are never better than the originals.
And here we are, we're going back to our namesake for the first time since we started this podcast, really. No, that doesn't make any sense. What I'm trying to say is we're back in the MCU this week.
Mm-hmm.
Last week we talked about Justice League. Next week we're talking about
Are you trying to say this
Aquaman?
Is the first time we've had to interrupt our regularly scheduled program? I said that like a 4-year-old.
Yes, this is the first time because the plan has always been when we cover a series, we then cover that series in perpetuity.
Uh-huh.
And whenever one comes out, it comes out in theaters, and then the next week you can go straight for your app, your iPod app.
Wow, you're old.
And you can listen to our episode and our thoughts on the new entry in the franchise. And so here we are. I've been waiting for this for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have too.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about July 9th,
Black
2021's
Black
movie,
Widow. We're
Black
talking
Widow.
about Black Widow.
Black Widow.
Micah
And
likes a good long preamble.
I love a preamble. I'm like the first part of the Constitution, baby. Now, one thing I thought, if you agree we should do this, is we can kind of go through the production of the movie and like a sample of our thoughts that are spoiler-free. And then we can do a hard, spoilers from here on out.
Okay.
So that if anyone wants to listen to it, you can listen to it until we say, okay, now it's all spoilers. You think that's a good idea?
Yep.
Okay, so this movie came out. We weren't able to see it over the weekend because I had a show, but we saw it yesterday, which was Monday. And we went with Trevin and Alicia, who I hadn't seen in 3 years, friends of ours. And we sat down, we watched the movie, we have some thoughts about it, some good, maybe some bad, I don't know, we'll see. And
this is spoiler-free, Micah.
Well, yeah, but we're going to still talk about maybe our opinions. Because if someone was like, hey, I want to know what you thought, I want to know if I should go to the theaters.
Yeah.
By the end of this,
or spend
they'll know.
$30 on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So that's when we saw it yesterday. And that's our story of seeing the movie. So, how should we dive into this?
You said you're going to do production.
Yeah. So do you want to do that before talking about it a little bit?
You said, do you want to do production first and then we talk about our thoughts spoiler free and then we dive into it?
That makes sense.
That's what you said.
That is what I said.
Okay. I'm just waiting.
So the movie's directed by Kate Shortland, who is an Australian, and she has done Berlin Syndrome, Lore, and Somersault.
Lore the show?
No.
Oh, okay.
A movie. The screenplay is by Eric Pearson, who did Godzilla v. Kong, Thor Ragnarok, and some of the Agent Carter TV show.
So, blockbusters.
Bread and butter for him.
Yeah.
The story is by Jack Schaefer, and she is the creator of WandaVision.
Cool.
So that makes sense. But she also wrote the most cursed thing in the world, Olaf's Frozen Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if it is what I'm thinking it is, that was the 23-minute short that was in front of Coco.
It was an episode of TV.
And it was so long that
hour 40-minute movie.
Yeah. And I was like, I want to leave the theater.
Yeah.
I don't even want to see Coco anymore. That's how bad it was.
Yeah. And then you saw Coco and we all cried.
Yeah. And it also, remember, like weeks later, they pulled it from theaters.
I know.
Because enough people were complaining.
Well, it's so long that I'm sure people were even like, okay, I know this is Disney too, but like, are they showing the wrong movie? It was that long.
It really was. And I also heard like they were losing out on like 3 or 4 showtimes a day at every theater.
Yeah. That's so dumb. Have you heard of the new Disney Studios movie that's coming out in November?
Oh, Kanto?
Encanto.
I've heard of it.
It looks good.
But I haven't watched a trailer yet.
And the pictures look awesome.
Cool. I've had it on my watch list for a really long time, waiting for it to come out.
It takes place in Colombia, and I saw a tribute. It's the first Disney princess with glasses.
Oh.
Fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You and I both wear glasses sometimes.
Yeah.
That means we can both be princesses.
Yep.
The other story by credit is Ned Benson, who he did. Do you remember this? The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby movies?
What is that?
So it's James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain, and they're 3
Yeah.
movies, and it's like
I've never seen it, but I've seen it. Yeah.
it's like disappearance of Eleanor Rigby him, disappearance of Eleanor Rigby her, and then disappearance of Eleanor Rigby them. So it's like
so it's like different perspectives.
I've always wanted to watch it, but I always feel like
I don't know a single person who's seen it though.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're like secret masterpieces, but I also feel like they're
Maybe they're like a before
yeah.
trilogy.
Hey, maybe we could cover it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a trilogy.
Yeah, I guess it is. The cinematography is by Gabriel Beristain, who has done Blade Trinity, Blade 2, The Shaggy Dog. There's a new MacGyver show, which I did not know that. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
A bunch of Agent Carter, and he also did the Dolores Claiborne movie, Stephen King story.
Cool. With Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates, yeah. And can't remember his name, but the guy who's in Nomadland that she kind of has some feelings toward.
Something Shepherd? No.
No,
I feel like he's got a shepherd in his name.
Well, he does look kind of like a dog, so.
I know who you're talking about, though.
Yeah. And then the music is by Lorne Balfe, who I didn't even do much on him because he did the score for Mission Impossible Fallout, which is one of my favorite scores, and I even wrote an article on oh crap,
why it's so important to the franchise.
Yes, yeah, and just look up Micah McCaw Mission Impossible if you want to read.
Well,
that.
where did it come out?
I am having a brain fart right now, but it's like a last action movies or something like that.
Okay.
UltimateActionMovies.com.
Okay,
UltimateActionMovies.com. That's what it is. So this movie comes out July 9th, 2021. It has a budget of $200 million. And now, if you're listening to this in the future, you're gonna think like, what's going on here? The movie was slated to come out last May, 2020. COVID-19 happens. They have to keep pushing it. And Disney's done a few experiments with their premium video on demand stuff with Mulan and Raya and the Last Dragon and Cruella. Now this one, they have a smashing success, in my opinion, when you look at it as a secondary Marvel character, and you look at it like box office and premium on demand, because they got about $80 million in domestic theatrical this weekend, 78 in international, and then all over the whole world they got around 60 million in Disney Plus.
Okay.
And if you don't know, Disney Plus has it for $30.
Yeah.
So that's a projected $215 million opening.
Pretty crazy.
So yeah, I think a lot of people were hoping that it was going to be like the first pandemic movie to breach 100 million.
Oh,
like
M.
box
Night's
office
movie
receipts.
hasn't come out yet.
That does have a chance. That could be the one. But that could also be like the second weekend is way bigger than the first weekend.
True, because of word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think this is it's a good sign that theaters are like coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a good sign that it seems like the audiences who are going to go to the theaters and the audiences who are going to watch them at home are not the same audience.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like they're actually eating that. There's a lot of people that are like sounding the alarms like this is, again, they're saying end of theatrical, but 80 million.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. I mean, if this was like Captain America with Chris Evans and it made 80 million, I think that would be like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But this is a B character.
Yeah. The dead silence just signals I agree.
Yeah. So, and if you compare it, and this is compared to non-pandemic movies, this movie is still domestically above the openings of Hulk, Ant-Man, Captain America 1, Thor, and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
And it's just below Doctor Strange. So it's certainly not a bomb.
Nope.
Now, do you want to hit any actors before I do some of the production?
Yeah. So first up, we've covered Scarlett Johansson, of course. But a newcomer to this franchise, Florence Pugh, plays Yelena Belova. Her sister, not sister, whatever. Maybe that was a spoiler. No, that's not a
No,
spoiler.
I mean, in the trailers, they talk about family and stuff. So.
Sure. Florence Pugh, if you're not already on the Pugh train, she is in Midsommar, Little Women. She plays Amy. That's her name. Remember, we couldn't remember who she played.
Oh, yes.
She's also in The Falling, Marcella, Lady Macbeth, The Commuter. She is blowing up right now, people.
Yeah.
And she's
Midsommar
great.
is her like critical break.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Little Women, she got an Oscar nomination.
She did, yeah.
So that's kind of like, and this movie I think is like, okay, she is arrived.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, that's how it really feels.
And I love her, and I think it was funny because Trevin, once we finished the movie, Trevin turned and he said, I like Scarlett Johansson and everything, and I think she's great as Black Widow. But is Florence Pugh just that good that she kind of made Scarlett look a little bad? And I don't necessarily agree with that.
I think she stole the show.
But she did steal the show.
Yeah.
Like she was on another caliber than any other actor in this movie.
Yeah.
But Scarlett was still like,
Scarlett was great.
she was awesome.
Yeah, she was so good. Florence, though, man, I'm glad she's so young.
I know, we have a long storied career for her.
And then also David Harbour plays Alexei. He is in, you probably know, Stranger Things. He plays
The dad, the detective.
Jim Hopper. He's also in Hellboy, Revolutionary Road. Okay, I already forgot. He's in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, he's at the meeting when they're eating the steak.
Did I talk about him? Maybe I said let's save him. I don't know if we're talking about him.
I think you did talk about him, actually.
Well,
but
you guys, sorry.
Let's talk about David Harbour for a second.
Okay. He was not tired.
Exactly. You and I, before this movie were coming out, we were saying, I hope that he's good because I like David Harbour, but when he is not locked in, he looks like he is bored, and like the minute they call cut, he's gonna like run off because he has something better to do.
If you want a good laugh, Google or YouTube his promo, like talking heads and promotion of Hellboy. It is wild how much that guy doesn't give an F about that movie.
It looks like there is a gun just out of frame.
Yeah. It's
crazy.
Crazy. And the movie did not do well.
he's like, we really hope that you'll come and see Hellboy in the theaters. It's quite the theatrical experience, and it was so much fun to make, I guess.
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah.
But he
was really good.
Was great in this movie.
He was
hilarious.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about the Russian accent before on this, but I thought his Russian accent was really fun, and I thought all of his stuff with his character, like wanting to relive the glory days, is always fun when an actor is that
hung
into
up
it.
on Captain America. I like it.
Yeah.
All around the Russian accents were better than they have been.
I do think what this movie did really good is there was so much moving around, and there was a lot of, I wouldn't even call it retconning because I don't think they like changed Black Widow's history.
No.
But they expanded upon it.
Yeah.
And I think they did it in a way where it's easy for me now to be like, yeah, okay, they're like spies. They can have whatever accent they want. She's by now in her life spent more time in America, so she has that accent. Florence Pugh's been hanging out in like Europe this whole time, and so she kept that accent. Like to me, that I'm like, fine, that's great for me.
And then we have Rachel Weisz, who is in The Mummy, The Fountain, The Lobster, a lot of those.
Oh yeah, I forgot that she's in The Lobster.
Yeah, she's good in that.
Yeah.
You've not seen The Fountain, man?
No.
That movie, from the one time I've seen it, was good.
Just anything like sweeping like that, that's like, this takes course over 1,000 years or 100 years, is really hard for me to
I just remember it being so good. And it's an Aronofsky film. Which,
yeah, your favorite director.
Well, isn't that kind of saying something? Although I haven't seen it since I've soured on him.
Yeah.
That is Rachel Weisz, essentially. Oh, she's also in The Favorite.
Okay.
Another The.
She's only in those.
She's
and
also
Black Widow.
in The Mercy. The Light Between Oceans.
Ah.
The Bourne Legacy. The Whistleblower.
That's kind of crazy.
Should I focus on other... Oh, I also wanted to mention...
Get Ray Winstone.
Huh?
You got to get Ray Winstone.
Well, I was also going to get O.T. Fagbenel.
Yes. I thought his performance was quite charming.
I was just going to say charming.
I
Yeah,
really
agree.
liked him.
He was great. He's in The Handmaid's Tale. He's in Max.
The dog movie.
The 5, The Interceptor, Looking Nonstop. What's the dog movie?
It's
Max.
Max.
No, it's not a dog movie. It's a sitcom.
Okay.
And then to finish it off, Ray Winstone, who plays Dreykov. So he's a person you know?
Yeah.
Because I didn't recognize him. So he's in The Departed. Huh? Who's he in The Departed?
I don't know. It was like I
Mr.
recognize
French.
Here I have to admit, and someone listening, probably Mike Combs, is going to be like, Micah, how dare you? But I saw the credits and it said and Ray Winstone or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he's in this, and I thought of a completely different actor. And the whole movie went by, and then today I was like, who was Dreykov? And I looked him up, and I'm like, oh, that's Ray Winstone.
Well, he looks a lot different than even his IMDb picture looks like that.
Oh, so it was who
I think he's also just older.
When I watched the movie, I was like, I don't see who that is, but I also kind of forgot, and he shows up a little later.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I didn't know. Okay, cool. So he's also in...
like, shut up, I don't care.
He's also on Beowulf, Cold Mountain, Cats. Yes, Cats. The Queen's Corgi. Yes, the Queen's Corgi.
Cats and dogs.
Ice, Space for You, Jawbone, blah, blah, blah.
All right, so does that wrap up the actors? Okay. So now let me tell you about how the movie was made. What?
Man, this is crazy. I just got to say this one thing. So the person who plays young Scarlet, young Natasha.
Yeah.
During the movie, I was just like, man, she'd make a great young Mia Jovovich. And she is an actress known for Resident Evil: The Final Chapter.
Wow.
So Hollywood already figured it out.
I thought it was kind of insane, the young Florence Pugh, how much she looked like Florence Pugh.
It was funny because of it doesn't, and let me just make this clear, it doesn't matter to me usually when kids don't look anything like the older person.
Yeah.
Like not even a little bit.
I don't care about that usually.
Doesn't even matter. But it was just like, this kid looks not even a smidge like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
It's funny. But yeah, I thought that girl looked like Florence Pugh.
Yeah. It was sort of insane how much she looked like her.
Yeah.
She had the exact same nose. I think that's what made it hit the ball home, as they say in baseball. Okay, so here is the backstory on this movie. In February of 2004, 4 years before there would be the kickoff to the MCU, Lionsgate gets the rights to make a Black Widow movie. And they will make the movie with Avi Arad, who is a Sony guy, producing, directed by David Hayter, who that would have been his directorial debut, and he's a big voice actor in video games, TV, and movies. And this is what that movie would have been. This is a quote from David Hayter. What I tried to do was use the backdrop of the splintered Soviet Empire, a lawless, insane asylum with 400 some odd nuclear missile silos. It was all about loose nukes, and I felt it was very timely and very cool. Unfortunately, as I was coming up on the final draft, a number of female vigilante movies came out. We had Tomb Raider and Kill Bill, which were the ones that worked, but then we had Blood Rain and Ultraviolet and Aeon Flux. Aeon Flux didn't open well, and 3 days after it opened, the studio said, we don't think it's time to do this movie.
Oh, man.
So that's why...
Poor guy.
The project was dropped in 2006.
Yeah.
And then as early as 2010, which is the year Iron Man 2 came out, Feige is like, I think we should do a solo movie. Iron Man 2 is the premiere of Black Widow, so he's like, this is cool. And then after Age of Ultron comes out, they adjust Scarlett Johansson's contract so that she has to be in more movies.
Okay.
And that would...
She sold her soul.
And then Nicole, I know I'm throwing a ton of names at you, but Nicole Perlman, who is the person who wrote Guardians of the Galaxy, but according to James Gunn, like he pretty much threw out the whole draft, but she still has a story credit on it. She wrote a draft of Black Widow, and that's in 2014. So we're getting closer. And then they're looking for directors, and they meet with Chloe Zhao,
Nice.
who will go on to direct The Eternals coming out this November. Or I think it's just Eternals. And out of all the directors they had, Johansson wanted to hire Kate Shortland.
Cool.
And then this time around, Scarlett gets $15 million on her paycheck. And now we don't know these things for sure. It's a lot of like Hollywood rumor stuff. But like Chris Hemsworth, all these, Chris Evans, they're getting paid like $15 million every time they're in a movie.
Yep.
And the women in a lot of these are not getting paid nearly that amount.
Yeah.
So the fact that Scarlett was able to get like as much as a male lead in a Marvel movie is like, that's a win.
Yeah.
That's a win. And she is the first Avenger to have an executive producer credit on a movie.
Wow, really?
Because she executive produced this movie. And then she wanted the film to, quote, comment on this incredible movement of women supporting other women and coming through these shared experiences of trauma on the other side by really coming forward and supporting one another.
Accomplished.
So, this movie's kind of a little bit of response to like the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Is according to Johansson.
Yeah.
Feige likened the film to the TV shows Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad.
Why?
Because he was like, what I like about Better Call Saul is you can watch it without watching Breaking Bad, but if you've seen Breaking Bad, it enhances Breaking Bad.
Okay.
So, and that's
if
smart.
That's how he means it. That's true.
That's how he means it. No, I don't think he means it in any other way. But because that's one of my biggest things about why Better Call Saul works so well, is they don't try to do the Hobbit thing where they go, hey, let's try and build up to Lord of the Rings. They just say, let's tell this story of this lawyer.
Yes.
And that's why the show is as good as Breaking Bad.
Yep.
Because they're not trying to be like, have you heard of blue meth? Or I don't know. They're not doing like callbacks that don't make any sense. And it was originally reported that Tony Stark was supposed to be in this movie.
Wow.
Which would have been weird because I think it would be a bummer to have Robert Downey Jr. in any more of these.
Yeah.
It would kind of take away from his death.
I wonder if that was an early rumor.
Well, I think they had some footage, and then ultimately Kate Shortland and Kevin Feige were like, this would be so distracting if he was in the movie, and it needs to be about Natasha. So good for them. And then originally the old trailers had a bunch of shots of her in her black suit, but then the movie gets delayed over a year. And so they're like, how do we make it so it doesn't just seem like we're doing the same marketing campaign? Luckily, she's in a white suit for a lot of the movie, and they focus on that, which I just think is smart. It's like a subtle change that I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
And now that they mention it, it's like, yeah, it did seem like kind of fresh when the other trailer came out and all the posters, she was in a white suit this time. So, and then there's one more, but I'm going to save it for the spoiler section of the podcast. So, what did you think of this movie? We're still in no spoilers.
I thought it was good. I don't. It's not like, I don't know. It's not up with the really good ones, but it's definitely not a bad movie. I don't know. It was. I don't want to say too much about why I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Without saying too much.
Well, okay, then I'll expand. I think if you are a Marvel fan and you feel comfortable going to the theaters, go see it in theaters.
Yeah.
If you're not a Marvel fan, this might not be the movie that gets you into it.
But if you're not a Marvel fan and you want to watch a Marvel movie that you don't have to watch 15 other ones to watch, this is also one for you.
One of the biggest praises that I have for this movie is you could literally go into this cold.
Yep.
And I think you would get just as much out of it.
Yeah.
Because all the talk of the Avengers and Sokovia Accords, I mean, it adds to it, but it's also like the same stuff you hear in a normal spy movie. So it didn't feel like, oh man, if you don't know about that, like if you don't know about the Sokovia Accords, you're going to be so lost.
It's just setting
in
the
this
time
movie.
that this takes place in.
That's it. So it's very contained as a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's like, it doesn't leave room for like, don't worry, there's going to be Black Widow 2 and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think that was kind of almost like miraculous to me that Marvel was like, no, this is like its story.
I thought we were going to get another character at some point.
And what do you mean by that?
Like a cameo.
Oh, yeah. And I loved that they didn't do that.
Same here.
And so, yeah, it's very self-contained. And if that's... So, in a way, you could jump into this one. This might actually be a good movie to jump into.
I mean, if you like, espionage thrillers, you will probably like this movie.
Yeah. And I think the action in this movie is at least in the top, like, 5 or 6 Marvel movies. Like, I think the action was really good.
It's better than a lot of them. I was a little bummed, though, because I think because it is a straight-up spy thriller, I was expecting a little bit more. But maybe that's the more that we get, is what, it was better than a lot of them.
Well, and I thought about that, too, because I right now I feel like the modern gold standard is...
I'm not expecting it to be a John Wick movie.
Yes, no, I know. But so I'm comparing it to that, and I'm like, yeah, but just to my personal opinion, it was like, this is like below John Wick, but it might have been like a choice to not make the shots as long.
Right.
And
it could have been too violent if you did that.
It could have definitely been.
So...
But yeah, I think the movie actually skirts the line between like a Bourne movie and a John Wick. It's like right in the middle because they're not cutting every fraction of a second.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool shots and action set pieces, but there is some stuff where you're like, yeah, I kind of know what's happening. Or like there was one thing in particular, which I'll get into later, that I was like confused about the geography of the action in one scene. But other than that, I mean, I thought the action was way better than Winter Soldier. I know people...
Any of them are, like, better than that one.
That's, like, the gold standard people always talk about, though. Because the movie,
I remember us specifically not caring for it.
Yeah, I know.
Because there were, like, a million cuts.
Yeah, so here's what I will say. Jordan and I are not as high on Winter Soldier as other people, but I think it's better than Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't have Robert Redford in it. And that's going to be a hit against any movie that doesn't have Robert Redford in it. But
Winter Soldier, bummer to rewatch.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'll watch it again and I'm like, no, it is pretty good.
I think it's a good movie, but it's just like, I think it's been given too much credit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like the idea and the premise is so good. It's so good, especially for a Captain America movie, but it is a slog fest.
It's just, I think it's as simple as this. It's just an ugly movie.
It is.
If it wasn't ugly, I don't think I'd have any issues with it.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't look very good. And I do get that the action in that movie is, it's kind of cool, but I wish it was like 20% cooler. And this action in this movie like really works. Mm-hmm. The other positive I will say about Black Widow is there's a little bit of super people.
Yeah.
But it was cool to have a story about a lot of the characters just being spies.
Okay.
There was...
I thought you were in reference to, there were a couple of car wrecks that I don't think a seatbelt would save you.
Oh, no.
And it's
there's
like,
a couple
you're
of those.
not a supernatural being. Yeah, you're dead. I'm sorry, but you're dead. There was a car explosion and 2 people walked out with their lives.
Yeah.
2 of 2. Crazy.
Yeah, there was that, but there was an element to this movie, and of course, this isn't a spoiler because this movie takes place in between Civil War and Infinity War.
Uh-huh.
But there were a few moments where I felt like, oh, Natasha's actually in danger. Whereas a lot of times, if I'm watching, like Iron Man or something, it's like, well, he's Iron Man.
It's not. It's not about brawn. It's about brains.
Yeah, or like Thor or something. It's like, well, Thor's not gonna die, and of course, I know Black Widow's not going to. But it's there felt like there was some actual danger in the movie, and I really liked that.
Definite moments of like, oh, she's not strong enough to handle that.
Yeah,
physically.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I put it. I was looking through my rankings and I put it above like 10 other Marvel movies. So it's like right in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely go see it. If it doesn't, then just keep listening to our episode. Come on. And now we're going to cut, and it'll be spoilers. How does that sound?
Great.
Spoiler alert! 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 Spoiler alert!
What's your last production note?
Oh, yes. I'm glad you remembered. So the next Disney Plus TV show is Hawkeye,
Okay.
and Florence Pugh is going to be in it.
Nice. Cool.
So what was cool about the ending of this, like we're going to talk about the ending
the
credit scene,
post-credit scene.
but we see Florence Pugh at Natasha's grave.
Mhm.
And then Julia Louis-Dreyfus comes up and she's like, wouldn't you like to take care of the guy who forced her to
here?
die? You
Yeah.
know? Kind of manipulating what we know really happened at the Soulstone place.
But Jeremy Blackhawk was a bad guy.
Yeah.
Once,
Oh, it totally makes sense.
once I almost said obliviate, which is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But people were obliviated.
Yeah. The blip.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. So I think that's a really cool development. And it's cool because I'm forgetting her name, but I believe the Hawkeye show is like he's training this other young Hawkeye
Oh, interesting.
who's played by the girl who was in Bumblebee, Haley something.
I don't know what her name is.
Oh, okay.
But I know who you're talking. She's an Edge of 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who I think is like unbelievable.
Have I actually seen her in anything?
Well,
We still have not seen that movie.
She's in True Grit.
I've not seen that movie.
Oh, she's so good in True Grit. It's
Okay.
crazy. But yeah, so
That Edge of 17 trailer looked good.
I know
She
I need to
looked
watch
good.
that movie.
I know.
But I believe the plot is like he's training her, and then it sounds like Florence Pugh is probably going to show up and then
Duke it out.
duke it out. Maybe even kill Hawkeye or something. I don't know. And then she takes the mantle. Whatever it is, their shows have been knocking it out of the park. So
Yep.
I'm excited. And this was supposed to be Julia Louis-Dreyfus's like premiere because this movie was to come out in May.
That's right.
And they filmed all this before Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
So this was like it was because of the scheduling stuff.
So we were supposed to get this post-credit scene of like, holy crap, she's in this now.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, what is going on? And then you watch a TV show about characters and you're like, holy crap, she's in this now.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And it's just great because the way this movie ends, it just makes you go like, I want Florence Pugh in all the Avengers movies. I want her to show up like all the time. And
Yeah, she's great.
I think she probably will. And I mean, come on, it'll probably be an 8-episode season of TV. Let's hope she's in every episode.
Yeah.
Let's go. And okay. So now the movie begins. We're in 1995 and we're in Ohio. And we see young Natasha and young, what is her name?
Yelena.
Yelena.
They're kids in the suburbs of America, and they seem to be really loving life. And their parents are Alexi and Melina.
Great job on remembering the names.
They say their names a lot in this movie. So yeah, they're just living the American dream, seemingly.
Mhm.
And but pretty quickly, so David Harbour Alexi comes home and he's like, we finally get to take that big trip. Let's go. And they leave and they can't take anything with them.
Now, I'm sorry, I gotta pause you here. The way that the beginning of this movie was shot, it's kind of got like an indie movie feel a little bit, and it was just strange. And I don't mean strange in a bad way. It was just, like super interesting to me, just how this movie was beginning. It was weirdly felt like a tiny bit slow of a beginning.
Yeah.
As like, we haven't seen one of these movies in 2 years in theaters, and it's like their triumphant return is not like an epic battle or whatever. It's like these two little kids.
Yeah.
And they're hanging out, and there's like this family.
But just like, I understand what you're saying, but it is like, this was never supposed to come out
Right. This was supposed to be like
at this time.
a little cherry on top.
Yeah.
In a way. But I thought I think we can sometimes give Marvel too much credit when they do anything outside of the box.
Yeah.
But I did feel like this movie did take a lot of like risks. I use quotes because it wasn't that risky.
Yeah.
But like starting it this way, some of the action and some of the story beats were like, oh, that's like sort of refreshing. And
that's true.
And even though, it could have even been crazier, it's like, hey, if they're going to keep on even just pushing their formula and just a little bit, then the movies stay fresh.
What's interesting, too, it does make sense to start this movie this way because the whole time with Black Widow through this franchise is we don't know anything about her.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point about her, is that she basically doesn't have a past because she's erased it.
Yeah.
So to start it with her as a kid, it's like, oh, man, I never thought I'd get to see Natasha as a kid.
Yeah.
So they have to flee because the cops are after them because they are Russian spies. And they've been living in America for like 3 years doing Russian spy stuff.
Yeah.
So they get to Cuba, which is where Dreykov is, and
otherwise known as Ray Winstone. We all know that.
Yeah. And they rip the family apart, essentially. Yeah. So the girls are like put into a cargo ship with a bunch of other girls. And then I like how this is becoming a thing in movies where the title credits are also telling the story.
Yeah, I love that.
Instead of like taking 3 minutes of us just looking at names, and not that you and I look at the names. We're like interested in who's involved in the movie.
What was nuts? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But it's just that they continued to tell the story because it was kind of a long title.
Yeah.
Credit.
Yeah. I thought it was nuts that it said Scarlett Johansson, then it said the title of the movie.
Well, if you're an executive producer, you get to do that, man.
I say more power to her, and I'm happy, but I'm not sure if that's happened in a Marvel.
Is that even allowed? Mike
Are you
also
even allowed
learned
to do
some
that?
new things about this Nirvana cover / this Nirvana song that he had never known before.
Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like I am just like really overloading, but I'm sorry. So cut me off when you need to. But so there's a cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it's slow, and it's this girl. It's breathy, and usually I am not a fan of this style of cover. I was all about it for this movie. What did you think?
It was fine.
I thought it was cool. I thought coupled with the images we're seeing, which are a lot of like, CIA intel, like satellite footage and stuff.
Yeah.
And this right here also felt like this is really weird for a Marvel movie. Like
it did. It felt so different.
Does not feel like I'm watching Marvel.
It felt
right
like
now.
the genre that they were going for. Spy thriller.
Absolutely. So I was like, this is really cool. And then I always thought that the song was Here We Are Now, Entertainers. Like, hey, we're the band Nirvana and we're entertainers. But it's Here We Are Now, Entertain Us. So
Micah not only got to see a Marvel movie yesterday, but he got to learn something.
I got to learn a little bit more about rock history.
Good for him. So in this title sequence, you see the Yelena and Natasha with all these other girls and like a cargo ship, and they're being pulled out of them, and they're being separated. Everyone's being separated from each other, and we know this much that Natasha was trained to be an assassin from childhood.
Yeah,
we've even heard of the Red Room, I think, before.
Yeah,
I feel like we have, right?
Yes, because I think in Age of Ultron we get a flashback that has Julie Delpy in it.
Yes.
Who's like the person that's walking around the Red Room and like helping her train. And I was kind of hoping Julie Delpy was in this movie.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
But it makes sense that she wasn't.
Yeah, that's just not what the movie was about.
Yeah.
So what happens after this part?
So now what we have is it's 2016 and Natasha's on the run. So this is like right after the airport fight.
Yeah, so Civil War, for people who don't remember, the Sokovia Accords came out. Well, after Age of Ultron, the Sokovia Accords came out, and they were like, you have to declare yourself, right, as a superhero.
Yeah.
Like you have to be on record, and we have to know everything about you, because you're too dangerous for us not to know everything about you. You have to be part of the system. Of course, if you've seen Civil War, not everyone's okay with that, because it is like a violation of privacy.
Yeah.
Because the superheroes are still people.
Yeah.
So Civil War happens. People choose sides. Natasha goes with Captain America.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So she is now a fugitive because she is against this new international law. So she's unwilling to like register herself.
Yeah.
So she's in Norway.
Yeah.
Living in or she has this friend who is, I forget his name in the movie.
I forgot his name too. It's like it starts with an M. Matthew. I think it's Matthew. Right?
Mason. So
I was close.
So this guy who pops up kind of throughout the movies, he's kind of the guy where she's like, I need this, and he gets it for her.
Yeah.
So he gets her this like RV in the middle of nowhere in Norway.
Yeah.
Where she is just gonna hide out in until everything blows over.
Mm-hmm. Now, another thing is we do get a cameo from Thunderbolt Ross, played by William Hurt, who tries to capture Black Widow.
Oh yeah, that's before this.
And they like attack a train, but she's not on the train, which I always love that in spy movies. They go to a train station and they're like, we got you. And then they go in and she's on a ferry somewhere like
going
thousands of miles away. And I'm always a fan of that in spy movies. It's always fun. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, but my dad is currently watching all the Marvel movies and listening through our episodes. And he's still in phase 1. But after he finished Incredible Hulk, he said, I really liked that movie. But he goes, man, William Hurt, just sometimes he is not good. And I thought, I remember liking him throughout this series.
To me, William Hurt is William Hurt. He's never anything but William Hurt in a movie.
But now I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about this movie, and I'm like, maybe he's just not a good Thunderbolt Ross. I don't know.
Who is Thunderbolt Ross?
Thunderbolt Ross, of course,
what a bad name.
Oh, come on, that's a fun comic book name. But he's like the J. Jonah Jameson to the Hulk.
Really? Is he supposed to be zany?
Not really zany, but he's like always mad.
Okay.
And especially when you're reading like old comic books, it's just such a funny like, oh yeah, this is like a Stan Lee.
I just feel like William Hurt missed out on a wonderful career being an English teacher or something. Like he just is really good at explaining things. That's what he always is there for exposition. And AI, that's what he's doing. He's just explaining things.
Oh, AI is so good.
So he's neither good nor bad for me.
In this series?
Anything in his life.
Oh, I think he's really good in AI and The Village. He's so good in The Village.
Okay.
Jordan, admit it.
I forgot he was in The Village.
Yeah. No, I like William Hurt, but I there might be something. I'd be curious what our audience thinks, because I haven't seen Incredible Hulk in so long, and I don't plan to ever watch it again. You're like, let's keep going. Okay, so
So her generator runs out of gas. She has to go back into town to refuel, but she is thwarted by some person.
The Taskmaster.
But unbeknownst to us, it's just this person with a cool skull mask thing.
Yeah.
I like the design. I thought it was cool.
Design is cool.
And I like that they made it ambiguous on if it was a guy or not. A guy or a girl.
Yeah.
You know, like, because this, like in this movie, I think that matters.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Totally. I mean, that is like the
that
theme.
That sounded weird.
Totally.
So they did a good job with that, because at first I was like, is this David Harbour maybe? And then I look at the person and I'm like, no, he is way bigger than this person.
Yeah.
But the person is like very bulky. You know, it's like, oh, they would put a guy in that costume.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a nice reversal, because the whole movie, frankly, I just assumed it was some guy. I didn't even really expect them to demask the person and it to be anyone of influence.
When they were going to demask the person, though, whether or not the person is significant, but whether or not the person would have been, immediately as we were doing, I'm like, it has to be a girl.
Oh, really?
For a movie like this, like it has to be a Black Widow.
Yeah.
Of some kind. Like a new generation of it, you know?
Oh, yeah. How come I didn't even think of that? What do you...
I'm just looking at the girl because I recognized her, but I don't remember what she's in.
Oh, okay.
But they fight pretty brutal.
Nice little action scene on a bridge.
Yeah, she's got a Captain America shield, pretty much.
Yeah, Taskmaster, you mean?
Yeah, and is using it as such.
Yeah.
But we're skipping the Florence Pugh scene too.
I was gonna bring us back, so let's finish this scene.
So the Taskmaster is not after Natasha; it's after what Natasha has, but she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
And she does not get away with it. Natasha keeps it. And is like, okay, now this stuff must be important.
Now, this is another spy trope that I'm always a fan of as well, where like there's the MacGuffin, the black box.
Yeah.
In this movie, it's the antidote to the Black Widow.
Yeah.
And Taskmaster's trying to get it, and eventually Taskmaster throws Black Widow off of the bridge and opens up the briefcase.
Oh, and
all the vials are gone, and Black Widow has them all. And I'm always like, yay! You got away with them. But in the previous scene, Florence Pugh is, she's trying to kill somebody, and then she eventually like gets the person down, some nice hand-to-hand combat. She stabs this lady, and then the lady presses this vial, and this red smoke comes out. I like to call it a smoke, not a cloud.
Okay.
And, I got to be...
It deprograms Florence Pugh.
It
Yelena.
deprograms her.
So she immediately realizes, holy crap, what am I doing to you? And that girl dies. And then Yelena cuts out a tracker from her.
Yeah. And I thought the story was going to go a certain way at this point, and I'm glad it didn't, because I would have thought this was a little lame. Because I thought a lot of the movie was going to be Florence Pugh learning how to be a good person, like
not wanting to fight
and stuff. And so when it's like the first scene she's introduced, we haven't really seen her do anything bad. She's immediately deprogrammed. I was like, what? Like that's her character arc is what I thought.
Got it.
And then when they didn't do that, I thought, okay, now it makes sense why they took care of that so quickly.
Yes, it does.
So
she's the one who sends the vials to Natasha because she also sends her this picture of them as children.
Yes.
So Natasha goes to Budapest.
Yeah.
Which she knows is where Yelena lives. And there's a fight scene between them in her apartment. And they mess it up. And why are they fighting?
Are you...
Yeah, I mean, like, so her sister sends her this stuff, and she's just like, I need to figure out why. And then they're immediately fighting each other. What? Why are you looking at me like that?
No, I'm keep talking.
Well, I think it's because, so Natasha's like deprogrammed herself out of being a Black Widow.
Yeah.
Because throughout her life, she's done really bad things. No longer, you got to watch the whole Marvel universe to even get to that point with her, but she knows that she now wants to use her gift for good.
Absolutely.
And S.H.I.E.L.D. made her like basically like, if you are going to do that, you have to prove to us by doing all these things for us.
Yeah.
Part of that was trying to take down the Red Room.
Yeah.
Which she thought she did.
And kill Dreykov and kill his daughter so that there are no loose ends.
Oh, I didn't think that was a specific order. That was just like her discretion.
Oh, was it?
That's how I took it.
Okay.
Because they kind of talk about it. But
either way, she attempts to kill Dreykov's daughter, which of course is going to be very important.
She kills Dreykov. She says it was collateral damage because she knew that the daughter would lead her to him. And that's
right. And it's an explosion. So It's like, yes.
So it's just she is means to an end.
Yeah.
So her and Yelena are fighting, and I think it is because Natasha is no longer a Black Widow in that organization, is what I mean when I say that.
Yeah.
But she knows that her sister still is, or at least assumes so. I'm thinking.
Yes. I don't think they explained that really.
But
now
then why would they? But I just think it's like I'm gonna have to like take her down so that we can finally talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is kind of like, why did you send this to me? But why are you fighting me right away?
Yeah.
But I think it's also
motive-wise, it's a little Batman v Superman, where you're like, just talk for 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's a little confusing because even Yelena knows that she's an Avenger, so she knows that she's like technically a good guy.
And she sent it to her, so she's like counting on her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think the whole thing was she said, I didn't want you to come here. She was like, I wanted you to use your Avengers stuff to make more, or to like get it out more publicly to take this all down.
I bet we're just missing like a sentence or something.
She didn't want her coming to her because she would bring all the trouble with her. Like, she knows that.
Yeah.
I think.
I don't know why you'd fight for that.
Let's accept that one. Let's accept that explanation. So
I thought this fight was pretty good.
Yeah.
The one thing though, like geographically, there's like a scene where they get tangled up in the shower curtains, and when they flip over, it was the other person that I thought was wrapped up in it.
Oh.
And I was like, wait, huh?
Yeah.
So, like, there's a little bit of that in the action where every once in a while you're like, I'm not entirely certain what's happening.
And here's a question. So they talk a little bit about what we kind of try to figure out what they talked about. They need to work together, essentially.
Yeah.
But so then they get bombarded by Black Widows. And they need to get out. So they go into her shower and she turns a dial. And does it just make things explode, like to distract?
I think that was like a gas. She opened like a gas valve. That's what I thought it was.
But they were in the shower.
Oh, I don't remember seeing a shower.
Huh.
Folks, give us a little credit because we went and saw it in theater and we couldn't take notes.
Because we don't use our phones while we're watching movies in theaters because we're not that person.
And if you are a member of the Macabre Podcast universe, fans,
and you're checking your phone during a theater experience, shame on you.
Shame on you. Yeah. Everything can
Unless
wait.
it's an emergency situation.
Yeah, but you know what I think about is like, yeah, there were emergencies in the 80s and people still went to the movies without phones. Just turn your phone off.
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Oh, we're so cute. So
now they're on the run.
They're on the run. And
there's some witty banter.
This was funny. And this is like, so there's this fight with one of the widows and Natasha falls a la John Wick Chapter 3, like off of a building and is like clunk, 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 gets up fine.
That was one of the first things where I was like,
yeah.
You didn't even break a leg with that one or a rib.
And she's not super.
No.
And it's just
and John Wick
seems
famously
like that
is.
right at this point.
yeah, pretty much.
But it's just funny when movies like go out of their way to show you like how much someone would die from something when it's like you could have just had her fall from a not as far of a distance and my suspension of disbelief would still be there.
Yeah.
But to have her like bang, bang, bang fall from like 7 stories up is like, oh, she's dead, period.
Or at least broken a wrist.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then the other hilarious
we know we're being
thing,
nitpicky. And we know it's a Marvel movie.
The other hilarious thing that and I heard Trevin turn to Alicia and say this, and I was thinking the same thing, is they're in this like little gas station and they're buying like bandages and stuff, and Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh are just talking about how like, Black Widow, you're in the Avengers, like what's your deal? Oh, I was, doing this thing and I want to go to the Red Room and kill
Dreykov.
Vladimir
Putin is what you were going to say.
And they're talking about their plan so loud, and it's a small room. The guy 100% hears it, and we have two fugitives on the loose.
I think what we're supposed to accept is they're speaking English in a non-English speaking country.
I didn't even consider that possibility.
Because they're still in Budapest.
But it's like he probably
I agree with
English.
you. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
It is wild because you have established so firmly how expert of spies these people are.
Yeah.
Expert level where she fell from 10 stories and she's still alive. So she figured out how not to break anything. And now they're just openly talking about secrets.
Yeah.
That the government's not even telling people probably.
And what I just find funny about it is it's just like, why do filmmakers feel the need to like set that conversation with another person? Why have another person around for that conversation?
Well, I think that they don't even think that far. Not that far. They just don't even think about that because they think, well, we need this exposition done, but they need to be doing something. Because it's also a survival movie. So we also, and it's fine, we didn't really talk about this car chase scene, which injured Yelena, and she had a really bad cut in her arm, so they needed to fix it. So
some cool action in that scene.
Yes, cool action. But while they were fixing that, that's when they did all their talking.
Yeah. That's
when you do it.
It's just funny.
In front of another person, not a great idea. But whatever, I guess. But yeah, so Yelena is definitely throughout the years has looked at Natasha as abandoning her. But not only that, like, you're apparently a good guy now. Like, what good are you actually doing? Mm-hmm. Kind of thing. And Natasha's, of course, it just feels like younger sister, older sister relationship.
Yeah.
And they're not sisters, technically.
Yeah.
They make that clear at the beginning. The whole family was a sham.
I was very confused about the family stuff till like the end of the movie.
But they talk about their moms like right away.
They do, but I just got confused.
Oh,
I think
it
was a me thing where I was like, wait, Huh?
But I mean, it basically is their family though, because that's the only family
Yeah.
they've ever had.
Yeah.
But so then they further talk more about all the stuff that they need to do, and that's when they talk about like who do you think you would have been, or like do you know anything about your mom? Asking each other these questions.
Yeah.
And you can definitely tell that Yelena has like dreamt about having a normal life to the point where she's even made up a normal life for her sister.
Yeah.
Natasha. So that's sweet. But what do they talk about in terms of what they need? So they determined that they need to basically, they need to find Dreykov. They need to find the Red Room. Natasha finds out that Dreykov did not die because Yelena tells her.
Yeah.
So in order to get help, they need Alexei because he worked really close. He was like Dreykov's like best friend.
Yeah. So they had to break him out.
Every time I say Dreykov,
prison
I think of Draco.
from
Harry Potter.
Yes, Malfoy.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to comment on, David Harbour, he's goofy in this movie, and I like that. Florence Pugh is very witty in this movie, and I like that. I do think, like, if we're talking perfect version of the movie, I think they dial the humor back about 20%.
But it's a Marvel movie.
I know, but it's like the first hour of this movie didn't really have any of that. So
No.
when it started happening, it felt a little weird.
I agree.
It felt a little, and I actually laughed quite a bit in this movie, but it did kind of feel like they said, like someone looked over the script and they were like, well, you have to put Marvel jokes in this.
Yeah.
And it's like, just trust us. We can make it through a movie with only like 5 one-liners instead of 20.
The funniest joke was the pose joke to me.
That was funny.
Yeah.
But it was also
If
like,
you've seen it, you know.
like, I could have done without that.
Oh, yeah.
I did really love all the David Harbour stuff, but again, I think if like 20% of his jokes were taken out, I think the movie would just the tone would feel more like beginning, middle, end.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be like one of my little fixes on the movie.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I don't think this movie really needs fixing.
Right.
And I do also kind of like that, especially as your listener, we're in the middle of DC, and I do like that even though this is a serious movie, it's not taking itself seriously. And that's what Marvel really is good at.
Yeah.
They know that it's fun at the end of the day, and they want to make it fun. So
At the end of the day, more kids are going to see this than adults, maybe.
yeah,
Maybe,
it's this generation Star Wars.
Yeah.
So so they break Alexei out of prison.
Yeah. I did like the reintroduction of his character after
Great.
we just talk about how funny the movie shouldn't have been. But
And I'm just saying 20%.
oh, I know.
Like
Trust
this
me,
scene,
Micah,
keep it.
You don't need to talk to me about it anymore. But they reintroduce
I'm in trouble.
David Harbour, and you do see like at the beginning of the movie, he has superpowers. He's super strong. So he's in prison, wasting away for the rest of his life, covered in tattoos and arm wrestling dudes one after the other, and he always wins.
Breaks
And
that guy's
breaks that
wrist.
guy's wrist, and that was crazy.
That was pretty nuts.
That was.
And he's telling the story about how he faced off with Captain America.
Yeah,
and
so
someone's like, "What year was this?" He goes, "1983, maybe." And he goes, "He was in the ice in '83."
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's just lying. He's reliving the
I
glory
couldn't
days.
quite get that. So, because did he ever fight Captain America? Because
I
later
don't think
on
so.
he talks about him too. But I think he equates himself to Russia's Captain America.
Yeah, because he's Russia's only super soldier.
Yeah, he's
And
the Red
Guardian.
Yeah.
And someone calls him another name. His wife does. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, this must be at some point in comics like this character was called that other name, and it
Sure.
was sort of like a goofy sounding
Sure.
name.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was though.
So they do a he gets some mail. Someone sends him the Red Guardian action figure that has an earpiece in it. And it's Natasha and Yelena.
Yeah.
You're in a helicopter. What's the difference between a helicopter and a helicarrier?
Pass.
Okay. So they're in a helicopter for this conversation. They bust him out.
They bust him out. There's
Yo.
like there's an avalanche that happens, which
I thought this scene was very okay.
yeah, I kind
It
of
just didn't make sense physically.
yes, and it begs the question of like if all those prisoners died because of the avalanche, which is like sad if that happened.
Yeah.
But this scene was kind of like the movie had stayed somewhat like grounded in like kind of its own thing, and then this is like, oh, this is like a Marvel, like they need to make
is
it
big.
like big.
Yeah.
Whereas
I couldn't imagine. I know he's strong, but like when Natasha comes back swinging on the rope to like get him,
yeah,
she's not doing anything. All he needs to do is grab.
yeah,
Like, how was she still able to grab onto the rope with him?
yeah.
He's huge.
He's huge. Yeah.
That was just kind of funny to me. It's like, there's no way she's picking him up.
This was more like, oh, this is in the wrong Marvel movie, is how this scene felt.
Yeah.
And I feel like it could have been a better scene if it was like a little bit more grounded.
Yeah, and it just was like too long, because I know they were trying to create suspense, because pretty quickly into the scene it is like, how are they going to do this? And then they try to do something and it's like, oh, they just can't do it? Okay. And then she comes swinging on the rope, and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, and the avalanche felt like, and this can work in other movies, but the avalanche did kind of feel like whenever you're watching any adventure movie and they're on a river, and then they're like, "Do you hear that sound?"
Yeah.
And then they're like, "A waterfall!" And you're like, "Yeah, I know. I'm watching an adventure movie. There has to be a waterfall."
Yeah.
That
it's surrounded by mountains,
so there has to be an avalanche.
Yeah.
But having said that, it wasn't like unwatchable or anything.
No, I
do
just
think,
was ready for it to be over.
Yeah, I think this is where like I dipped out the most, as far as
same here.
Where I was like, oh man, I like, you know,
it's becoming just okay. So he gets into the helicopter, and he thinks like, oh my gosh, my daughters came back to save me. This is so beautiful. They don't care. They just
like
want one
all
thing
this
from
stuff.
him.
Yeah,
yeah, especially because it is like, we were a family, but we weren't really a family. We're not going to pretend like we're a family. And I thought it was crazy when he was like, oh, you must be on your period. And she's like, no, I don't have a uterus. They ripped everything out of me. I can't have babies. And it was like, geez,
I was kind of surprised
crazy.
that they put that in this movie.
I'm not.
I think it's
I'm
important,
and
I'm glad they did, because it says a lot about like,
the control,
like the organization and the control of like.
You're a robot.
But I don't think it was bad. I just was kind of surprised it was in a Disney movie. That's what I'm trying to say.
But they are fighting, verbally fighting, and then Natasha is I don't even know what words I'm saying anymore. Essentially, what he says is, oh, we have to go to Melina. I don't know anything about Dreykov.
Yeah.
Dreykov?
Dreykov. Oh no, it's
Dreykov.
It's like one of those words we've said so many times that
well,
now
I said the Draco thing, and I shouldn't have
Dreykov.
said
Dreykov.
Okay, but
Ray Winstone.
So Dreykov put him in the prison. So like he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
So they need to go to Melina because she is still working very closely with him.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, duh, of course, family's back together.
And Melina's very into pigs.
Very into pigs, so she's a scientist and she is studying pig behavior.
Yeah.
Racial wise, fine. I guess.
I liked her.
I thought she was okay.
I thought she was fun, but that's okay. I can take that. And then there's like some heart to heart stuff. They try to like, you know, have a dinner together as a family, and Florence Pugh gets really mad. Mm-hmm. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
And
so does Natasha.
Everyone's like, just tell us where the Red Room is. We want to take care of this mission. And then I like that David Harbour, the whole movie's like, but I do kind of love you guys, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the sequence of the movie too, where he's trying to talk to Florence. She doesn't want anything to do with him, and he has just kept saying like how boring those 3 years were for him.
Yeah,
like he was doing important work, sure, but it was so boring, blah blah blah. And she is offended by that because it's basically, you were raising me, you were being a father, and that's boring to you. It's always about it's always about you. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he didn't think about how anything you did affected us because we were a family.
Yeah.
So, that was sweet.
Definitely.
They resolved that. And then Natasha finds out that she was taken as a child, as a baby.
Yeah.
Immediately when she was born, her family sold her into this, but her mother always was trying to find her. Mm-hmm. And Rachel Weisz or Melina was telling her that her mom was relentless to the point where they had to kill her because she was too relentless in trying to find her. And that was a really good moment.
Yeah.
For Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
Great character development.
And then I actually was fooled by the double crossing in this movie. Were
Yeah,
you?
me too. I was.
I think in another movie, so what I'm talking about, I'm assuming you've seen it, listener, is the mask switch.
Mhm.
I think because that technology has never been shown in any other movie, never would have expected it.
Mhm.
And in any other movie, that would be like, you can't just, you need a gun in the closet. Like, I need to see that there is this technology before you use it. But since it's the Marvel Universe, when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I buy it. That's great.
It's also a spy movie. This happens all the time.
Yeah, so I don't think they needed, I think it actually would have been not good if they put the gun in the drawer.
It would have been just like beating us over the head with it.
But basically, we see what we perceive as Rachel Weisz take out Florence Pugh, and everyone's
And
arrested.
Natasha.
And Natasha. And everyone's like arrested. They're taken to the Red Room.
Which is up in the air, which was a little ridiculous. But
Oh,
it's up in the air.
I like air.
Because it's Marvel, it's great and it works. It's comic book. And when I saw it, I was like, this seems like such a comic book thing. If
Yeah.
this was not a comic book thing, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I agree with that.
But because it's a comic book thing, pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they get up there, and once you know that Rachel Weisz is really Natasha with a mask on her face, it's interesting to think about that scene where she stops and she looks at all those girls who are in the Red Room, like training.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Because before I was like, oh, she must have trained them at one point. But
Yeah.
then when I thought back to it, I'm like, oh, she's looking at that and she's having all of her memories flood her, and she's probably horrified.
Right.
So Tad just said hello, our cat. And so then we follow Rachel Weisz into the room with Ray Winstone and
Dreykov.
And they have this
Dreykov.
discussion, and during this discussion, we find out that he has, like a ton of these Black Widows everywhere. And to him, he is recycling the trash, the most, the thing that we have too much of in this world, which is women. And this is where those themes that Scarlett Johansson wanted this movie to be about really shine through.
Yeah.
And I am like a sucker for this theme in a movie where it's like women controlled by man, women take back the power.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so there's this great sequence where, she tries to kill him.
But his pheromones will not allow her to hurt him.
She has like this chip in her brain still.
Yeah. And the thing to we didn't even talk about, because it did take me a minute or two to be like, so how come Natasha's not affected by this? But the whole antidote,
Yeah.
it's there's like a generation of Black Widows who are chemically brainwashed.
Which is
Not-
kind of
not
shown
just-
with the pig.
Yeah.
In the previous
You're
scene.
right. But not just how they were raised brainwashed, but chemically. And they couldn't snap out of it until
Good catch.
instead of an antidote. And Natasha never got that. That's why, because at one
Okay.
point I was like, shouldn't she get the antidote right now?
I just didn't even
something?
really think about it, but yeah.
So, yeah, that is important to know, I think.
Yeah, so they have this great conversation, and like the other Black Widows that are in the Red Room are coming, and Scarlet like can't kill him, and then it cuts back to a scene where Rachel Weisz says, "Hey, you have to sever the nerve," and then
Basically, break your nose.
Black Widow says, I'm forgetting, but Black Widow's like, you have all this power and stuff, you control me, but I'm going to take it back, and I'm going to have to do it the hard way. And smashes her head on the table.
What was crazy is he hit her several times, and she said, you didn't quite do it enough. So she plans
she was trying to get him to smash it.
To break her nose, yeah. Or to sever the nerve.
And then she says, you were too weak, I'll have to do it myself.
Yep. So she smashes her face, which
that's
is really
even-
brutal.
That's even more about the
Yeah.
metaphor where it's like the man controlling can't even like break the link when she tries to trick him. She still has to do it. It's all on her own volition, and for the women to help her do it and stuff.
Yeah, so
That's
she
cool.
successfully does that, but of course, because this is a movie, she doesn't kill him right away. Like, something thwarts her. Do you know what I mean?
The other Black Widows. Yeah.
So he calls all the Black Widows to come, and she starts fighting against all of them.
And I appreciate this. When she is getting ready to kill him, it's only like a couple seconds before the Black Widows get in there. Because sometimes you're watching a movie and you're like, just pull the trigger. You've been talking to this guy for 2 minutes. Just kill him. And she's like, okay, here we go. Like, I'm going to kill you. And then they break in. So that was nice.
It's a movie thing.
Then they have a nice fight with like all the Black Widows. It's cool. It is funny though, after, we've talked with Ilram Choi and Amy Johnston, stunt people in Hollywood. We've talked a lot in the Ip Man series about like group fights and how when you watch them, they can look bad sometimes if you pay close attention. And it was funny because I was looking at the background Black Widows. And they're literally just standing there watching the fight, walking around.
But it kind of makes sense, I think, in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, just because, he says, kill her, but make her suffer. So it was like each one had their own chance to, like, really get their licks in. So it was almost like everyone was hanging. I know I'm making excuses.
No, that's actually good. I like that.
I have to kind of make things up like that in my head sometimes so that it doesn't break me out of the moment or something.
Yeah.
But, that's going on. Melina, Alexei, and Yelena.
I think of Alfred Molina every time you say Molina.
Yeah. They're breaking out, or they're doing what they need to do for the mission. So, Yelena was about to get her brain dissected, basically, but she gets out and she finds the antidote. Meanwhile, Melina is trying to do something on a computer that I don't remember. And then
I think she's deactivating the Black Widows, but she's unsuccessful.
How could she deactivate
or
them on a computer?
No, she's trying to open the door so Florence Pugh can get the antidote.
Okay, so antidote.
Antidote.
And then Alexei is fighting the Taskmaster. And it is revealed that the Taskmaster is Dreykov's daughter.
Yep.
So that's all going on.
Good reveal.
Yeah, I think so too.
Story-wise, that really works.
So Natasha is getting the poop beat out of her, and just in the nick of time, Yelena shows up with the antidote with a bomb strapped around it, and it explodes, releasing it all over the Black Widows.
Yep.
And they're like snapped out of this delirium, and they say, what do we do now? So that happens. Dreykov is fleeing the ship. Melina destroys one of the engines, so the whole thing's crumbling down. This thing that's in the sky.
Yeah.
So everyone needs to evacuate.
Yeah.
Alexei. So I don't know. How do we even say this? So let me get to this part. Essentially, Dreykov gets on a plane.
Yeah.
With all of his henchmen, and Yelena is going to destroy one of the engines on that plane. That's gonna kill them all. This looked like a really bad reshoot. Also, it was just weird. So she's about to do that, and then it cuts to Natasha and is like, Yelena, no! And Yelena's like, this is how I die, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what she says.
This is a cool way to die, or something
like that. And then it cuts back to Natasha. No, don't do it!
Yeah, that was
so
weird.
Bad, especially because she saves her.
Yeah.
Like, it was so weird that I'm like, okay, so Yelena's just surely dying. And then she doesn't. And it's like, I don't know if you would have stopped and screamed. Maybe you would have, but even still, it just felt off. It felt so off, and it didn't look good.
Yeah, you're right. And then it explodes, and she falls off, and Black Widow grabs a parachute.
This whole part's cool.
I think the money shot of the movie is when, she saves Yelena, and then she sees Taskmaster coming down to fight her, and she like jumps onto some glass, and it's like shattering at her feet, and they kind of like trade a couple of blows, and they're bouncing throughout the rubble that's floating in the sky, and I was like, comic book, baby. Yeah, that's cool.
That looked great. So Yelena successfully gets down with a parachute.
Yep.
Natasha gets down with the Taskmaster on a parachute. And Natasha figures out a way to give her the antidote.
Yep. And then she, Natasha's able to apologize to the Taskmaster, and she's basically able to like.
The Taskmaster says, "Is he gone?"
Yeah, and he is.
Yeah.
And he didn't just fall out. They made sure and showed him exploding and catching on fire. So it's like, he's not coming back. He's done.
He is done. And the Red Room is gone.
Yeah.
So Pugh or Yelena. Well, okay, so there were a couple vials of the antidote left. Natasha gives it to Yelena. No. I think Natasha ends up with them because she's going to use them. She's going to take them to someone, right?
No, she gives them to Yelena.
She does?
And then Yelena and the other Black Widows, their mission now is to free the other Black Widows.
Okay, that's right.
And then
S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up to take Natasha. And I do like this. Like, I mean, it all just makes sense logically, but it is like, well, she finally did it. She destroyed the Red Room. She did what she needed to do for them. So she's probably fine in terms of the Sokovia Accords. You know?
What do you mean?
Because she was a fugitive because she was running away.
Yeah.
But she just took down this really terrible thing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sure S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, we can work some things out for you. But you're not going to go to prison.
I thought what I got from the ending, and I think it's because she is on the run in the next time we see her, is that like
she's not on the run though.
She is in the run in Avengers: Infinity War.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant at the end of this movie.
But the impression I got was not that they let her go, but that she's like, okay, the hunt's back on. I've taken care of the Red Room thing. Now I'm gonna go. And
you don't think S.H.I.E.L.D. picks her up?
Actually, that's true because the next scene, she's off the grid and she gets Marcos to give her, or Marcus to get her.
Okay, but I did still like it because I feel like it is like cool. Like she was supposed to destroy the Red Room years ago, and
for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Even
I
S.H.I.E.L.D.
see
thought
what
that
you're
she
saying,
did it,
like on a.
And now she actually did it.
I see what you're trying to say. Yes,
completed in her story too.
I didn't pick up on that. So,
but you are right. She is still on the run at the end.
Yeah, and we were very succinct, I think, on this plot. For how, I mean, I thought it would be harder to explain, but I think we did it.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the post-credit scene. It is nice, because I was reminded by this when I was doing research that, Black Widow didn't have a funeral in Endgame.
No.
And in this movie, she
gets that.
She gets her private funeral, which is kind of like more true to her, like her true family.
Yeah.
Knows where she's buried.
Yeah.
And I thought the funeral thing. It's like when Florence like hugs the tombstone. I'm like, am I gonna cry right now?
I know,
because she's that good of an actress.
Yeah.
And then we see Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and then
the rest is history.
We go. What's funny is, Uncle Phil from Tim Heidecker's podcast, Office Hours. Mm-hmm. I saw a tweet before this movie, before we saw it, where he said, at the end of Black Widow, when they showed Hawkeye, I said in the theater, "Oh, great, a movie about the other boring Avenger," and he said the theater busted up.
I love that. That's funny.
It was pretty funny. But I liked this movie. I'd put it in the like 6 or 7 out of 10 range, I think.
Sure, that sounds good.
And yeah, I mean, it's like I'd watch this any day over Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I like it more than many of the Marvel movies.
Yep.
So that's that, I guess. What do you have to say, Jordan?
I concur. It's good, not great.
But
it was fun to see a Marvel movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Return to form.
Yeah, this is the beginning of Phase 4.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little coda to kind of close things out. And then next movie that they're going to put out in September is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I'm very excited about that one. That one looks really cool.
Yep.
I think that's another one where they're going to kind of at least push a little bit on the boundaries that they've given for themselves.
Crazy high fantasy.
I
know. It didn't even look like a Marvel movie.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I'm excited about that. And, they hired a guy who is like a martial artist.
Yeah.
Like that's what he does. And I mean, he's an actor too, but, so
that's what he does.
I think it's going to be like legit action in that movie.
Yeah.
So that's coming up in September. We'll have an episode out the week after. One thing I want to mention is we have started a Facebook group to discuss all things about the podcast or just movies in general. And so if you go to Facebook, it's the Macabre Podcast Universe discussion page. I'd love to call it something else.
Did you have to say discussion page when you created it?
No, that's just what I called it. Because it's a group, not page.
Not a page. I get it.
Because I wanted it to be like I'm part of a couple of different podcast groups, and I think they're more fun than a page. So
yeah.
get on there, maybe suggest what we should call it, because Blank Check has blankies.
Yeah.
Like, that's the fans of the podcast. So what should we call fans of this podcast, and what can we change the title to? That would be cool.
Yeah.
Figure out. But jump on that, and let's grow that little community on Patreon. It's Space Jam this month still. So go to patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW and sign up for as little as $3 to get Space Jam. And then this weekend, we're probably going to be watching and recording Space Jam: A New Legacy for our August Patreon. Thanks for listening. We finally did a new release.
Yep.
Next week, it is Aquaman. Ooh.
Have fun, guys.
That's a fun
We
episode.
did.
That's a fun
Bye.
episode. Bye.